million are without power. Many are still in need of a rescue. We'll take you inside the recovery effort.
And winners of Missouri's vaccine incentive program are announced. Also, the U.S. military works to get soldiers and equipment out of Afghanistan as the August 31st withdrawal deadline nears.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thousands across Louisiana and Mississippi are devastated by Hurricane Ida. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Zach Dodge. Ida has been downgraded to a tropical storm after pounding parts of Louisiana and Mississippi as a hurricane for 16 hours with wind gusts up to 172 miles per hour. That's tied for the strongest wind gusts in Louisiana state history. More than 1 million customers are without electricity, including all of New Orleans. That's where CBS's Michael George is with the latest. It appears we may be having some technical difficulties. We'll be back to that, but in the meantime, we'll go ahead and go to Michael Hayslip with our look at the first forecast.
Zach, and picking up just where you left off, let's go ahead and check in with Ida. And once you said, well, once again, you hit it on the nail. A Category 4 when it made landfall. And here was the interesting thing. Unfortunately, made landfall 16 years to the day of Hurricane Katrina. Now, let's pick it up as we stand. It's now a tropical storm. So Tropical Storm Ida, yet to be a low pressure system or the remnants, and it's making its way right now through west central Mississippi. Now, with that being said, I want to reiterate that Zach was telling us the devastation that it caused along the coast as compared to Katrina, just about 50 miles west is where the eye hit. And we can give you an idea exactly where it came in last night, made its way in between Thibodaux and New Orleans, right off of Lake Pontchartrain. And luckily, it is continuing at a pretty good clip. But you not only have the torrential rains, but let's all remember, once you get a tropical storm of this force that makes landfall, then it turns into tornadic activity because of the swirl around it. So you've got tornado warnings that range not only through Mississippi, but all the way up through Tennessee as well. As a matter of fact, the volunteer state talking about evacuation time. And what we'll see is as it drops all this rain, it's also gonna flood the Mississippi. So what does that mean? Well, it's gonna come right back down through New Orleans once again. So this is a long way from being over. Now, obviously, we'll have a lot more on our 4-state weather coming up here in just a little bit. But we'll take a look at our 7-day forecast and show you that today and tomorrow, to close out the month of August, very seasonable. We're going to pick up some scattered rain, not a bad thing. We need it to the point where we're more than 1.5 inches down, not only for the year, but you go back to June 1. And also, too, when we begin September, Zach. Hello, heat wave.
Heat wave, woohoo!
Yes.
More heat.
We like to call it the old Indian summer, and it is going to reemerge because we'll be in the mid-90s all through next week. We'll talk a little bit more about Ida, its threats, and also to dive into exactly what we've got for our afternoon when I see you in a bit.
Thanks, Michael. We'll check in with you here in just a little bit. A crash in Delaware County, Oklahoma leaves a man in critical condition. It happened at around 1 p.m. on Sunday, about 3 miles northwest of Grove, Oklahoma, on Oklahoma 125. 53-year-old Quapaw resident Raymond Stanley, who was riding a motorcycle, was flown to Freeman Hospital in Joplin in critical condition. The other driver involved in the crash was not injured. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. A one-vehicle crash in Cherokee County claims the life of an Alabama man. The Kansas Highway Patrol says just after 11 Friday morning, 79-year-old Clonnie Smith of Cocker, Alabama, was driving east on Baghdad Road when his car left the roadway. The rear end struck a tree, causing the car to spin 180 degrees and crash into another tree. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment issues a boil advisory in Wilson County. The KDHE says the advisory is for Wilson County Rural District number 11. The advisory is not related to COVID-19. The KDHE says the advisory is in effect due to conditions that place the system at risk of bacterial contamination, specifically a pump failure resulting in loss of pressure. The advisory will remain in effect until the issue can be resolved. The winners in the first round of Missouri's COVID-19 vaccine drawing are announced, and they include some in the Joplin area. Although the Department of Health and Senior Services says they can't say for certain whether this has played a part in raising vaccine rates across the state, they have seen an increase in numbers.
We were doing about 7,000 doses each day throughout the state of Missouri. And about a week into the launch, that increased to about 13 to 14,000 doses per day. So not quite 50% increase, but almost.
Winners for the Vaccine Incentive Program's second round were notified on Friday. Those winners will be announced on September 8th. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon.
The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan is in its final stages. I'm Natalie Brand at the White House with the Biden administration's message to Americans and Afghan allies still trying to leave.
And later, a Friday night treat just got a whole lot more dippable. Topping Nation Watch, the time for civilian evacuations out of Afghanistan has come to a close, as the U.S. military is making sure it gets soldiers and equipment out of the country before President Biden's August 31st deadline. Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
Smoke rose near the airport in Kabul following an early morning rocket attack. Nearby, a car on fire showed where the launch originated. 5 shells were fired, some missed their mark or were destroyed by a missile defense system.
This is the most dangerous time in an already extraordinarily dangerous mission.
Sunday, U.S. forces carried out a drone strike after 2 men were seen loading explosives into the trunk of a car.
This strike prevented a high-profile attack against both, coalition U.S. forces and other Afghan civilians.
In the final hours of the withdrawal, evacuation flights continue, but most of the seats on the planes leaving the airport are filled with U.S. soldiers.
Making sure that right up until the end that we can get people out safely, including evacuees.
The Biden administration says it will hold the Taliban to its word that any Americans or Afghan allies still in the country after the deadline will be allowed safe passage out.
The State Department is in touch, we know, with additional American citizens. Again, given the tense security environment that we're dealing with, I think it'd be better to just not talk about it much more than that.
President Biden watched solemnly while the bodies of 13 U.S. service members killed in a suicide attack on the airport last week returned home. The fallen ranged in age from 20 to 31. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
18 troops were also injured in the suicide attack. Those service members are in Germany receiving medical care. And now we're going to go to New Orleans, where Hurricane Ida has devastated Louisiana and Mississippi.
In the daylight, we can see what Hurricane Ida left behind: destruction, power outages, and many people in need of a rescue. Now the recovery operation begins. Ida's powerful gusts ripped off roofs across Louisiana. Flying debris knocked down power lines, leaving more than 1 million people in the dark. In New Orleans, rising floodwaters trapped these drivers in their cars.
Is there any way that you can come halfway? We'll walk over the bridge or close to you.
Officials say it may be 72 hours before rescue crews can get to those trapped. Debris flew off Ochsner Medical Center in New Orleans. Hospitals across the area continued treating patients even in the hazardous conditions.
We have considerable amount of damage to the hospital itself.
On CBS this morning, Dr. Mark Klein of New Orleans Children's Hospital says he's making plans to evacuate patients because of power concerns.
We currently have fuel for emergency generation to last about another 4 days. and we don't know what our ability will be to get additional fuel in.
We're only now seeing up close the devastation left in Ida's path. Brick buildings like this one in downtown New Orleans were completely reduced to rubble. Officials say they're working to use generators to pump storm water out and drinking water in. As Ida leaves a trail of damage across Louisiana and Mississippi, FEMA officials say it's going to be weeks before the power is fully restored across the area.
Still to come on KOAM News at Noon, Mr. Food.
If you like flaky dough stuffed with all sorts of cheesy goodness, then you better stay put, because you're not going to want to miss this.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
Weekend really wasn't too bad at all. Our temperatures, while the fact that they were very similar to what we had over the week where we had all the heat advisories, you know, a big difference was we actually got some cloud cover and didn't feel like it was like 103 and 104 degrees. Still, when we look at that August average high, just a skosh above what we'd normally anticipate, and with 2 days left on the old calendar, sit at 90.6 degrees. Now, as we take a look at our Skywatch storm tracker here in the 4 states, picked up just a little rain out on the northeastern edge of southwest Missouri early this morning. We'll remove the sweeping radar because that'll give us a little bit better indication of where we are seeing some pop-up rains right now in McDonald County and then in between Monette and Cassville, starting to pick up just a tad out in southeast Kansas. But the nice thing is number one, we need the precipitation, and number two, we don't have to worry about the fact of anything severe. You'll tell you everything kind of hung down around Arkansas earlier and the bottom of your screen. Let's go ahead and talk about what is Tropical Storm Ida. Of course, it made landfall 16 years to the day that Katrina made landfall. The only real difference, and it's negligible at best, Katrina came in right here. So take about 50 to 60 miles out to the west as far as where Ida came in. But at the same point in time, you still have absolute devastation along the Gulf Coast as now the Tropical Storm I moves through portions of Mississippi. So in New Orleans, Children's Hospital does have backup power on. That's a great thing. Here's another one that I think we're going to concentrate on, and I don't mean to be I'm not trying to play economics or anything of that matter while we think about those people on the Gulf Coast. There's a very good chance that gas prices are going to see a little bit of an increase because of Ida. And that's simply because we're talking about pipelines, we're talking about offshore facilities, and certainly we will jump into that. And like I said, I don't want this to sound like it's about economics. It's certainly about human life and safety. But that actually could play a role in what we're going to see here as far as what we get at the pump in the coming days. As we transition to 7th and Rangeline in Joplin, we are fortunate enough here in the 4 states to just have an absolutely gorgeous afternoon. 87 degrees is where we stand right now. And as we get ready to wrap up August, I said earlier, we're about 1.5 inches down for our rain, not only on the year, but really since June 1 as well. And so while our temperatures right on par for where we'd be this time of year, this is a welcome sight. How about a little pop-up for the evening and afternoon? And it's not severe. And then once we get into Tuesday morning, northern counties get a little bit more. It's not going to be one of those things where we get anywhere close to an inch, but we're going to need it because once we start September, it is going to be hot and it is going to be dry.
Right. Hot and dry, but I will take that over being in the middle of
Then what we're talking about with the Gulf.
Yes, definitely. But thank you very much, Michael. We take this time now to honor today's 4-state hero, Staff Sergeant Floyd Southern. He served in the Army in South Korea in 1953 and was part of the Special Honor Guard for then President-elect Dwight Eisenhower in 1952. A native of Pittsburgh, Kansas, we salute you, Floyd Southern, a 4-state hero. If you like homemade pizza, but it seems like too much of a hassle, don't settle for pizza rolls because Howard's got the recipe for you. Perfect as a snack or for dinner time, we're making cheesy pepperoni pizza sticks today in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
With summer winding down and life getting back to normal, many of you are looking for something new and exciting to shake things up. That's why you're going to love the stuffed pizza sticks we're making today. And after taste testing them, we found that these are just as good served as a snack as they are with a meal. After unrolling a can of refrigerated crescent dough, we start by pinching the seams together, creating 4 rectangles, like this. Then we sprinkle some shredded mozzarella cheese down the center of each piece, shake on some Italian seasoning, and top that with sliced pepperoni. Now the dough gets folded over the filling, and we seal the edges. That way none of the cheesy goodness oozes out as it bakes. Okay, we give each one a twist and brush them with some butter and shake on Parmesan cheese before baking them off. While these bake, I suggest heating up some spaghetti sauce so you can dip or top them with even more goodness. I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those recipes that you're going to make over and over again. To get the recipe for these cheesy pepperoni pizza sticks, all you need to do is visit our website. I'm Howard with Kelly in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a pizza perfect way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Now here's a look at the 4-state market. While the Olympics may be over, one sport saw the impossible become possible over the weekend. It was a high-flying, death-defying week for mountain bikers in the German quarry. The first one landed Australia's Caroline Buchanan in the history books as the first female to land a mountain bike front flip to dirt. And another Aussie, Elias Russo, nailed a front flip heel clicker, a world first. That is really crazy cool. Nice.
So I have to admit, I hadn't seen that video before. I found myself rooting for them, like as I'm watching the video. I'm like, oh, everybody, hang on!
Hoping they do as well in the replay as they did originally, right?
Yeah, hopefully. No, Zach told me that he was excited about that video.
Yeah.
It did not disappoint.
Amazing.
All right, spotty afternoon rain chances, and we need it a little bit. The nice thing is, for the next 2 days, we'll be in the high 80s, perfectly seasonable. Then hello, September. Here come the 90s.
Dow Quick joins us with what's coming up at 5.
Yeah, at 5, linemen at electric crews in the local area are in Louisiana doing what they can to help pick up the pieces after the storm there. Plus, we're going to hear more about alleged incidents involving the Joplin and Webb City football game on Friday night. And as the Delta variant spreads, unvaccinated Americans infected with COVID-19 are pushing states to another pandemic high in hospitalizations. Hope you join us at 5.
Thank you very much for joining us today at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.